Hi, my name is Lacey Hathaway. Here is my video submission of my assignment. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. So the topic that I talked about was water privatization. It's something that I've never heard about before, so I did a lot of research on it, and it's a pretty interesting topic if you haven't heard about it. I personally think it's a little unethical, but that's up to you to decide, but hopefully you enjoy it. So here's my paper. So what is something that all living things have in common? Despite geographical location, language, and culture, we all share the same needs. The need for something as basic as water is what keeps humans humble. Despite this, large entities attempt to control and privatize water supplies all over the world. In recent news, the World Bank continues to lobby for the privatization of water from North America to Asia to South Africa, anywhere. They are for it, and a lot of people are against it. This is the topic that has always been debated because it encroaches on ethics pertaining to both human rights and environmental concerns. Water privatization embodies a few things. It could imply man-made infrastructure such as dams or river modifications, or it's about the water supplies in urban cities. It's whichever, but either way, the World Bank wants to look to control it. So one of the biggest statements against water privatization is that water is a basic human right. Water is not an item that should be priced based on supply and demand. Water, activists argue, is qualitatively different. A particularly non-substitutable resource, essential for life and public health, and imbued with both political and spiritual significance. In a lot of countries that one could argue for water privatization, water is an important part of everyday life. For example, countries like India and Turkey rely heavily on water access to rivers and streams. Having private companies rule over important, life-sustaining bodies of water is counterproductive to the greater good. People for water privatization claim that it is for the bigger picture. Through private control, companies can be focused on providing water for underprivileged people who might have been previously hindered by having access to water. In their eyes, what is unethical is denying people the right to water that is accessible to them and for them. So that's their view. They say the World Bank is for helping out all these countries, and through water privatization, they think it'll help. But upon further research, this argument is slightly hypocritical due to most protests for water privatizations being for urban areas and cities like Detroit or Havana, Cuba. For example, investments in sub-Saharan Africa in rural areas where development needs for water supplies are greatest, there has been minimal private sector participation projects that have focused on, and they have focused almost exclusively on urban areas and in middle-income countries. So their argument is that it's going to help people, but they're focusing on urban areas like cities rather than all the people in Africa who need clean drinking water. So basically, another backlash of water privatization is the unequal power relations between rural areas and big business, though through the expected profit deriving from the flows of rivers and the investments in the company, economic and social power has simultaneously produced unequal power relations, thereby marginalizing and excluding the local community while redefining the ownership of the river. That quote was taken from an article about Turkey, and apparently one of their biggest issues is that a lot of companies are claiming the rivers in Turkey, and the people are upset because they view the river as something that they need for their everyday life, and the companies are coming in and essentially trying to claim it and sell it or manipulate it with dams, that kind of thing. So basically, it's just causing more issues. It's causing a greater gap between the community and the private sector. So when the private sector, their goal is to help and promote having water access, at the same time they're just making people resent them. So it's really not helping. But of course the World Bank is looking to ignore the protests against it because they're still focused on the fact that it's going to cause it's going to produce a better outcome than harm. So with a greater knowledge of what it really means to privatize water, essentially one should make up their own mind. Is controlling water unethical, even if its goal is to provide that same water to unprivileged people? Is water privatization a slippery slope to monopolies on items that should be considered basic human rights? The World Bank is a powerful organization that has strategized profusely as to how to achieve this goal. Maybe instead of focusing on having private companies dictate water supplies, they should form strategies around what the people actually want. Instead of assuming people want access to water a certain way, they should sit down with those impoverished regions and talk with the same people that they want to help. So, I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you. Bye.